The story of today's movie begins in 2002, where we see a man, his wife, and their young son, who is crying constantly. In a car, the wife is arguing with him while he's driving, after catching him with another woman he was cheating with. She said, "You're always raising suspicions around you, and I always felt that you were cheating on me." He replied, "You've always been suspicious of me, and I was always innocent, but when you kept doubting, I couldn't bear it and did what I did, and you also bear some responsibility for what happened." The wife became very angry and grabbed the steering wheel, saying, "I'd rather die than have you be with that woman." The man tried to convince her to let go of the wheel, but to no avail, and they crashed into another parked car. The man died in the accident. The wife was injured, but the child was unharmed because he was seated in the back. 17 years later, at a hotel, Casey, Stacy, and Megan were celebrating Casey's promotion to school principal. At that moment, they had an issue with the air conditioning in their room, so Casey went down to report the problem to the front desk. A man named Ian approached them. He was introduced as the new maintenance technician responsible for fixing the air conditioning. When the girls saw him, they were impressed and tried to talk to him, but Casey stopped them. After fixing the AC, he left immediately. Later, after Casey's friends had fallen asleep in their rooms, she went down to the pool for a bit and found Ian there. He asked her, "Would it bother you if I joined you in the pool?" She replied, "No, go ahead." Ian got into the water and dived for a long time, making Casey jump in quickly to try to save him, but he was just playing to make her enter the water. After that, he offered to accompany her back to her room as a courtesy since she saved him, but she hesitated, saying, "I'm not used to this kind of thing." He responded, "We're adults, and you look beautiful and I like you. What do you say to us going out for something together?" She agreed to his request but on the condition that it would only be once. In the room, Casey expressed her disbelief in what she was doing and said, "I'm older than you. How did I end up bringing you to my room?" He replied, "Don't say that. You're beautiful, smart, and I've liked you since I saw you." He moved closer and almost kissed her, but she pulled back, saying, "I'm officially married." He inquired, "What do you mean by officially?" She explained that there were issues between her and her husband, and they were trying to work things out. In the end, Ian couldn't resist and kissed her, saying, "This will be our little secret." The following morning, Casey woke up to find a rose and a note from Ian, containing sweet words about the previous night. Gathering her composure, she joined her friends at the front desk as they were about to leave. They asked the clerk to thank Ian for fixing the AC, but they were shocked when the clerk told them he didn't know anyone by that name. At this time, Ian was in the back of the hotel handing over a shirt and giving drugs to the real AC technician, as they exchanged roles. After that, Ian went to his car and took out a picture of Casey's daughter, Berry, planning how he would lure her in. When Casey returned home, she met Berry, who was improving in her speech therapy due to a speech impediment. Berry expressed her sadness over her parents' separation, and Casey replied, "I'm comfortable with the separation." Berry was upset and told her mother that although her trip was enjoyable, she noticed a change in Casey, asking her, "Did you have fun on your trip yesterday?" Casey replied tensely, "Yes, it was fun with my friends." Later, Ian returned to the place he lived with his stepfather, who was a drug dealer. Ian was preparing drugs, and then he entered to check on his mother. When Casey returned to her home, she told Berry that the principal and her daughter should not be late on the first day of school. Berry was worried about the first day due to her speech issue, but Casey reassured her and accompanied her to school. There, Casey was shocked when she saw Ian inside the school. Berry entered the classroom, where two girls, Leslie and Jenna, were planning to befriend her because she was the principal's daughter. Ian arrived late and sat next to Berry, introducing himself to her. After the lesson, Berry went to check out the art exhibition, and Leslie and her friend Steve, along with Jenna, followed her to chat and become friends. During their conversation, Steve noticed Berry's way of speaking and asked, "Why do you speak like that?" Leslie nudged him to warn him against embarrassing her. At this moment, Ian stepped in to defend Berry. As they talked, Casey came to speak with Berry, and Ian quietly withdrew. The two girls asked the principal if Berry could join them for pizza, and Casey quickly agreed to allow her daughter some fun. Later, Berry asked her friends about Ian's whereabouts, and they told her he always disappears and appears suddenly. Meanwhile, Ian was at the student lockers and told Steve, "This girl is mine, and you have no business with her." Later at the pizza place, Jenna and Leslie were talking about Barry, and Jenna mentioned that Barry asked about Ian. Jenna said, "I've never seen him act like this with any girl. I even lost my virginity to him." Ian appeared then, making Jenna feel uncomfortable as he approached Barry to become friends. He told Barry they should go out together soon. When Barry returned home, she told her mother she met a nice guy and expressed her feeling that the girls might only befriend her because she's the principal's daughter. The next day, Ian checked on Barry, and she told him she felt Jenna was upset with her for getting close to him, and that she didn't want any issues with anyone. Ian assured her he would try to smooth things over with Jenna, explaining that their relationship was in the past. Barry expressed her admiration for him, describing his personality as nice. Upon arriving at school, Casey was surveying the school grounds when Ian and Barry entered the classroom together. Upon seeing him, Casey was shocked, remembering what happened between them at the hotel, while he looked at her coldly, and she left the room feeling uneasy. Later, Casey asked a colleague at the school about Ian and learned his full name, and that he had a record of issues and had recently been transferred to the school. She called her friend Megan and asked her to come over that evening to help her resolve this crisis. Meanwhile, Ian was with Barry after school, and they sat together, where she asked him why he was so interested in her. He replied that he felt a special bond between them, while her mother watched them from the school window. She hurried over to Barry and asked her to leave immediately. When Barry asked why she was behaving strangely toward Ian, Casey explained that her friend had said negative things about him. Barry felt frustrated, thinking that wasn't enough of a reason to treat him that way. In the next scene, Ian shows his mother an article about Casey and tells her his plan is working, that he will take revenge on her, and that he will protect Barry. At home, Casey tells Barry to get ready as her father is coming to take her. When he arrived, Casey asked him to tell Barry why they separated, but he refused, saying he couldn't tell her that her mother had a past relationship, as it would hurt her. Then Barry entered, and he left with her. Later, Casey calls her friend and asks her to come quickly. At that moment, Ian is watching them from outside. As her father's car passes him, he follows them. At the restaurant, Barry's father tries to bond with her, but she keeps changing the subject, and complains to him about her mother's behavior that she doesn't understand. While talking, she sees Ian, and she gets up to meet him. At home, Casey tells her friend Megan that the young man she had a relationship with at the hotel is now a student at the school, and is trying to get close to her daughter. Returning to the restaurant, Ian convinces Barry to continue meeting him and to ignore her mother's words, and Barry listens to him, affected by his sweet talk. At that moment, Barry's father comes out and sees them, and Barry introduces them, but her father is cold toward Ian and takes her back inside. Upon their return home, her father tells her mother about meeting Ian at the restaurant. She replies, "He's a bad guy, and I told her to stay away from him." Her father agrees and leaves. The next morning, Casey goes to the garage, takes a knife, goes to the school, and opens Ian's locker, placing the knife inside. The next day, there's a surprise search, and the security guard takes the knife from Ian's locker and brings him from the classroom. Ian denied, saying, "I didn't do anything." When he sat down with the principal, he told her that he had been watching her for a long time, that he didn't get into a relationship with her by chance, and that he only transferred to the school after requesting the move. He threatened her with a video, saying he wanted $500,000, or he would release the footage. She responded, "I don't have the money, and I won't allow you to blackmail me or keep me under your control. If you publish the video, I'll be scandalized, but you'll also end up in jail, so stay away from my daughter. It's better for you." Then she called the security guard to remove him from her office, as she decided to expel him from the school. The guard took him out, and Gina saw him leaving, so she followed him in her car. Casey told her daughter Barry that she had expelled Ian, which upset Barry, and she left. When Ian returned home, he was frustrated, and his stepfather began scolding him for getting expelled from school. Ian got angry, grabbed a knife, and stabbed him. Then he went to his mother and told her that he would save Barry, but just then, he heard Gina calling him from outside. He went out to her, and she confessed her love for him, telling him that she wouldn't leave him just because he was poor and she was wealthy, but he was preoccupied and didn't pay attention to what she was saying. During their conversation, Gina heard his stepfather groaning in pain and felt afraid. Ian forced her to leave and threatened to kill her if she revealed what she had seen. Then he went back to his stepfather, who was still alive, and beat him until he died. The next day, Ian went to school and took Barry before the lesson ended. Gina saw them and Ian signaled to her not to speak. He convinced Barry to go have breakfast with him, even though she was hesitant and didn't want to miss her class or anger her mother. Meanwhile, Casey's colleague informed her that Barry was absent from class, so Casey quickly went and asked the teacher. Gina happened to be there and told her they had left through the back door to avoid being seen. Casey called Barry, but Ian answered, telling her to bring all the money and valuables from the house, and said he would call later with the meeting place. Casey asked to speak with Barry, but he refused and sent her a picture of Barry. Then, Ian took Barry and left the restaurant. In the car, he told her he was her brother, and that their mother was responsible for their father's death. Barry was terrified and completely shocked at that moment. Meanwhile, Casey returned home with Megan to gather money to save Barry, but Megan told her she would call the police, though Casey was afraid Ian would harm Barry. At the same time, Ian had taken Barry to an abandoned house and told her he had spent his whole life planning revenge on her mother, and that Barry was his sister from his father's side. He explained that his mother had suffered from their father's betrayal when he had an affair with her mother 17 years ago, which resulted in Barry's birth. Barry didn't believe him and said, "My mother would never do that." Ian replied, "And I had a relationship with her too, and I recorded it on video." At that moment, Barry tried to grab the gun from him, and it fell to the floor. When he bent down to pick it up, she hit him and ran. Ian chased her and called her mother, Casey, demanding she bring the money. Casey arrived, handed him the money, and asked him to let them go, but he wanted to take Barry with him. Then he confronted Casey, forcing her to admit she did indeed have Barry with his father. Casey confessed her mistake, and told him that his mother had mental issues and used to stir up problems and suspicions with his father without reason, which led him to betray her just once, and that she, too, had been going through problems with her husband. Ian got angry and said, "You seduced him," but she replied, "That's not the truth." Before he could kill her, she attacked him, and they struggled until they both fell from the second floor to the ground. Casey then apologized again to her daughter Barry before an ambulance took her away. Ian's body was removed, and over time, Casey's relationship with her daughter improved, and they reunited, with Barry beginning to live a normal life at school. And that concludes our movie. If you enjoyed the film, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest we offer.